Let me ask you a question. What if the biggest economic impact of artificial intelligence isn't the jobs it replaces, but what happens after those jobs disappear? Right now, companies around the world are rapidly adopting AI to automate work that is used to require teams of employees. And when people hear about AI, layoffs, they usually think about the first effect, workers losing their jobs. But economists are watching something much deeper. Because large waves of layoffs don't just hit the economy once, they hit twice. First, through the jobs that disappear, and then through the ripple effects that spread across the entire economy. And once you understand how that second wave works, you start to see why economists are paying very close attention to the rise of AI. So now, let's break it down. Let's start with a simple question. Why do layoffs caused by artificial intelligence matter so much for the broader economy? Most people assume the impact is straightforward. Companies automate tasks. Workers lose jobs. Productivity improves. And eventually the economy adapts. But what many people don't realize is that large waves of technological layoffs often affect the economy in two separate stages. The first stage is the obvious one. Jobs disappear. But the second stage, the one that economists watch closely, happens after the layoffs begin spreading through the rest of the economy. And that second wave can sometimes be even more powerful than the first. To understand why, we need to look at how the modern economy actually functions. Every job is connected to a chain of spending. When someone receives a paycheck, that income doesn't just stay in their bank account. It flows into the broader economy. Rent payments, groceries, restaurants, streaming subscriptions, travel, clothing. Every paycheck supports dozens of other businesses. This is why economists often describe the economy as a circulating system of income and spending. Your income becomes someone else's revenue. Their revenue becomes someone else's paycheck. And the cycle continues. Now imagine what happens when a large number of jobs suddenly disappear. The first impact is direct. Workers lose income. But the second impact is indirect. Because when those workers stop spending, the businesses that relied on that spending begin feeling pressure as well. Retail stores see fewer customers. Restaurants see fewer reservations. Subscription services lose subscribers. Travel slows. Housing demand weakens. And suddenly the layoffs start spreading into sectors that had nothing to do with the original automation. This is what economists call a multiplier effect. And it's the reason why job losses often ripple through the economy far beyond the original industry. Now let's bring AI into the picture. Artificial intelligence is different from many past technological shifts because of how quickly it can automate certain types of work. Earlier, waves of automation often replaced physical labor. Factories installed machines. Agriculture introduced mechanical equipment. Assembly lines became automated. But AI is targeting a different category of work: cognitive work, writing, data analysis, customer support, basic programming, administrative tasks, research assistance, tasks that were once performed by large teams of white-collar workers. And that means the industries affected by AI may include sectors that traditionally had stable middle-class employment: technology companies, marketing departments, consulting firms, financial services, media, customer service centers. If automation accelerates across these industries, layoffs could begin appearing in areas of the economy that historically served as income engines for consumer spending. That's the first economic hit. Workers lose jobs. But here's where the second hit begins to form. When large numbers of workers lose income, especially in middle income roles, consumer spending starts to slow. And consumer spending is one of the most important drivers of economic growth. In the United States, consumer spending typically accounts for roughly 2/3 of economic activity. That means when consumer spending slows down, businesses across the entire economy begin feeling the effects. Retailers experience declining sales. Travel demand weakens. Entertainment industries slow. Small businesses lose customers. And eventually, companies in those industries begin cutting costs as well, which often means more layoffs. So the initial wave of layoffs caused by automation can eventually trigger a second wave of layoffs caused by reduced consumer spending. This is why economists sometimes say that job losses don't just affect the workers who lose employment, they affect the entire economic ecosystem. Now, to be clear, technological progress has historically created new jobs over time. The Industrial Revolution eliminated many traditional crafts, but it also created entirely new industries. Automobiles created mechanics, manufacturing plants, and transportation networks. Computers eliminated certain clerical jobs, but created entire sectors in software, IT, and digital services. Technology changes the structure of employment, but the transition period can still be economically disruptive, and the speed of that transition matters. If new industries emerge slowly while automation spreads quickly, the labor market can experience periods of instability. Workers displaced from one sector may not immediately have the skills needed for new types of employment, and retraining millions of workers takes time. During that transition period, unemployment can rise, household income can decline, and the multiplier effect begins spreading through the economy. Another factor economists watch is income distribution. Automation tends to concentrate economic gains in specific areas. Companies that deploy AI successfully may become dramatically more productive. Their profits increase, their market share expands, but those gains are often distributed unevenly. Investors benefit, technology firms benefit, highly specialized workers benefit, but workers whose tasks are automated may experience income loss. When income becomes concentrated in smaller groups, overall consumer spending can weaken because high-income households typically spend a smaller percentage of their income than middle-income households. In other words, the structure of spending changes, and that shift can influence how economic growth evolves over time. Now, this doesn't mean that AI will automatically cause a recession. Economic systems are complex. New technologies also create opportunities. Entire industries may emerge around AI development, infrastructure, and services. Productivity gains could lower costs for businesses and consumers. New tools may enable individuals to start businesses or expand their capabilities. But the transition period is where uncertainty appears. And that's where economists begin watching the data carefully. Labor market trends, wage growth, consumer spending, productivity, business investment, because when technological disruption reaches a certain scale, its economic effects extend far beyond the companies that deploy the technology. They influence the broader structure of the economy. And that brings us back to the original idea. The AI layoff wave doesn't just hit the economy once, it hits it twice. First through direct job losses in industries adopting automation, and then through the secondary ripple effects that spread through consumer spending and business revenue. Understanding that two-stage process helps explain why economists and policymakers are watching AI adoption so closely. Not because technology itself is new, but because the speed and scale of this transition could reshape the labor market in ways that ripple through the entire economy. And like many major economic shifts throughout history, the real impact may not appear immediately. It may appear gradually as those second-order effects begin spreading through the system. If you found this breakdown helpful and want more videos explaining how technological change, financial systems, and economic cycles interact, consider subscribing.